This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
We'll call a January 21st Board, Council on Aging Board to order, and we'll do a roll call vote. Call your name, please respond. Tom Brown.
Here.
Patrick Brow. Leslie.
Here.
Catherine.
Here.
Crystal. Stan. Oh. Marie.
Here.
Louise.
Here.
Very good. And Kathy's here.
I can't hear you well enough.
I'll speak up. Is this better?
Thank
Will
you.
do. Okay, our next order of business are the minutes. If you'll take a minute to review those. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, additions, or deletions to the December minutes. Hearing nothing, I'll accept a motion.
I'll make a motion here.
Catherine sets a motion.
I'll second.
Tom seconds. All in favor of approving the December 17th minutes, please raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
I wasn't here, so I'm abstaining.
Okay, no. Abstentions?
Abstention.
2, 3, 4.
So it passes 402. That's a simple majority.
So just a question.
Yes.
So this is who was here last time: Tom, Patrick, Kathy, Carey, Marie, Louise, and you, Kathy. Leslie, Crystal, and Stan are the only people who were absent. Just to note in terms of abstentions.
Was Louise here?
Louise was present. Okay.
Okay, and I abstained, right?
You just did, yes. You just did, yes.
Thank you.
All right. Now, anyone else out there? Can public speak? I don't believe.
Nope.
So. Moving on, Patrick isn't here for a Highland report.
Correct.
So we'll pass on that. And we'll move to you, Cindy.
Okay.
For the director's report.
Okay. Well, I'll start with staffing. So we hired a new reception person. The position was office aide. It's part-time. Debbie Gezzi. Let me admit Patrick.
Oh, good. We'll come back to him.
Hi, Patrick.
Hello.
Hi, we're just doing the director's report and then we'll come back for your Highland Valley item. Nice to see you.
You too. It'll be as short as it normally is.
Okay. Okay. So her name is Debbie Gezzi. That's Debbie with a Y as opposed to the Debbie IE, who's our Monday office aide volunteer. And then secondly, the activity coordinator position has been filled, and that person is beginning February 10th. So just to make sure everything goes well with the start date, I won't announce who it is here, but at our next meeting, I'll be able to talk with you about that. And then at some point, I'll tell you folks a little bit more about our organizational chart and what the different job descriptions are and what people are doing. It might be nice to have if we want a refresher, and well, when we get to the other agenda item about future agenda items, we could talk about that. The transportation piece. I had told you folks that what we do is guide people how to use our transportation, and that in the very long time ago, we had a booklet for the staff really, and for the van drivers about how transportation worked, and then multiple sheets about how transportation worked. So I tried to make a succinct, although it is 4 pages, description of our transportation program. It's so long because it also includes our volunteer driver program is in here also. And as many things as, and I did email that to people, but following this meeting, I will email it. It is also now on our website. So you can go, look at it online there, and I have copies here. As specific as you try to be, situations come up that are not, Louise has her hand up.
Does the transportation report yet include things like PVTA senior sign up program?
So the PVTA service that we provide, where we host PVTA to do the senior ID, is in our outreach program and is separate from COA van transportation and volunteer transportation. So what I'm talking with you about today is city funded transportation, not PVTA transportation. Okay, so let's just be clear about that. Now, yeah.
For the sake of getting through presentations, could we possibly just hold questions until the presentation's completed?
Yeah.
And then jot down and then fire questions at you at that point.
The
Absolutely.
words right out of my mouth.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Said from a long time board chair.
Yes.
Okay. So I want to give you some highlights, but let me just give you an example recently of something that happened where I don't have every single possible scenario written into these, and I want you to understand in case as a board member, you're out and about and trying to educate people about our services. So recently we had a situation where a person is going to a medical appointment and seemed appropriate for our transportation. But one thing we realized is that when you're on our ADA vans, the big vans, there's no handle like there is in a car to pull yourself out of your seat. And our drivers can't pull you out of your seat. So if you don't have the strength to stand up from the seat, we can't transport you unless you have an aide with you who is allowed to handle you in that way. So recently we had an incident where we were taking the person to a medical appointment. Well, the physical therapist had to come out and help this person get out of their seat. And we were stuck because we knew we couldn't, even though the person could get on the van themselves, with their rollator, they could ride the lift up, they could sit down. The fear was once we got to their house, they wouldn't be able to stand up. And then what would we do? So I actually had to call the fire department to say, if this person can't get out of their seat. And they said, absolutely. But is this a one time? Like how many times? Obviously there needs to be a plan. So in the end, the person had a friend come and take them home. So the physical therapist said to me, do you have, for example, a weight limit? Well, no, because you can be any weight and have the strength to stand up. So a weight limit wouldn't take care of it. If the person was in a wheelchair, there wouldn't be an issue with them being able to sit down and stand up. But the whole point of this was to go to physical therapy and get stronger and not to be in a wheelchair. But just to be very clear, we don't put hands on people. We might stand next to them as they very slowly maneuver. But we don't put volunteers and van drivers don't put their hands on people other than if somebody needs help to be buckled in. So what I'm going to do is edit this one more time and somehow squeeze in here, that you have to be able to actually stand up from your seat and sit down in your seat, which is something that we are very clear about being able to get in and out of the house on your own. So So that's not in here. But again, should I put every single possible example of whether people can or can't use our transportation? I don't know. So you can read this later, but I'll just go over a couple highlights. And how much time do I have, Kathy, left?
Oh, we're way ahead. It's 12:11.
Okay, and we know Patrick will be brief. So just to reiterate, our rides, just like PVTA's senior van, are door to door. So you have to be standing outside your threshold of your home, whether at the top of your ramp or the bottom of your steps. If you're at the top of your ramp, we can wheel your wheelchair down, or you can maneuver yourself down. If you're at the top of your steps though, and you can't navigate those steps down, we can't help you. You have to be able to get down the steps. Otherwise, we would have to physically, you'd have to like lean on us and we'd have to take you down the stairs. If somebody needs to be picked up within their home, because they can't get in or out of their wheelchair or they can't get out of their chair, then that goes beyond what the city can provide. It goes beyond what the PVTA senior van can provide. You'd have to get a letter from your doctor to get ADA qualification and use PVTA's ADA van, where they can actually go past your threshold, get your wheelchair and wheel you out, but they don't put you in your wheelchair. So you would have to have an aide who can, or a friend who can put you in your wheelchair. So this is a big unmet need in the community. And then for people who don't have a ramp, and that's what's stopping them from getting outside their door. I think Stavros, Stavros in Amherst installs ramps and has a program. There may or may not be a wait list when you apply, and we can help you apply. So let me bring up another example of something that happened recently where we had to problem solve. We can bring people to the senior center, but we can't always bring them home from the senior center if by the time their activity is finished, and we've talked about this here before, if our van driver has gone home for the day, because we can't afford to keep a van driver on for 3 hours while you're at the senior center and then bring you home at 3:30 or 4, or even sometimes 2:30 if they've been done for an hour or 2. So we say in here that we can guarantee you a one-way ride to this Council on Aging, but depending on what time you get done, we might not be able to get you home. So how would you get home? You could get make an appointment for a volunteer ride with us. You could make an appointment for a senior van ride, which runs in the evenings. The only thing about the PVTA senior van is that if it's during the commuter hours in the morning and the afternoon, you are lower priority for activities. You are high priority for medical and employment. If you are doing your senior tax work-off work, that is considered employment. And if you want to use the PVTA van, you can at a higher priority level. So that's just one example. So that's going to impact our programming. So we traditionally have movies on Fridays, once or twice a month, but they always go too long. We can't start them until the morning activities are done. By the time they're done, the van driver isn't available. And so we need the people who need a ride to home from the movie to make an appointment with PVTA, or we need to arrange a volunteer ride for them. And so we're actually not having movies in February anyway. We're taking a break from it, but it's something we have to solve. And the third and last example, I just want to show you how not everything is addressed by, having a piece of paper, is what if you need rides to come to the senior center and the things you want to do at the senior center are frequent every week? We can't, even if they're within the hours, we can't guarantee you a ride because medical appointments take priority. So if you plan to go to a class that happens twice a week at the senior center, plus you're going to work out and you're going to do this, and suddenly you need 3-4 round trip rides to the senior center. We do have one person who needs that right now. So I suggested we find a companion driver, preferably senior tax work off, and make a regular schedule for them with 1 or 2 volunteer, what we call companion drivers. Now, in the past, that would have been difficult for us. We had so few volunteer drivers. We would have prioritized medical for them as well. But right now, we have, we think we have the capability. What if it's more than one person at some point? 5, 6, 7 people need round trip rides to the senior center multiple times a week? Well, then what I would do is I would need to way in advance, put in a request to the mayor to increase the transportation budget. We have the vehicles, we have drivers, but we don't necessarily have enough hours for the drivers in the budget. And also we did not hire the drivers. There's 4 part-time drivers that any of them would have the intention of being there much beyond 2:30. So, except for special events. So none of them were hired with that understanding. Could I manage a 5th driver? I don't know. That's a lot more staffing. So these are things to think about as we get busier and busier. So that is my transportation report. You can read this, and then if you have more questions on it, we can address them another time.
Any questions for Cindy?
I do.
Louise?
Probably a lot. Because you lost me earlier on in transportation. I'm a senior, and at the moment, my prominent need is to get to Ashley in person, which I think I have an appointment with her tomorrow. And that's because she's herself is going to pick me up and bring me back. So it's a little questionable about the state of my own upkeep of my own apartment, in terms of icing over and all that, and all snow removal. But getting back to transportation, I think that's probably going to solve itself for tomorrow. But like my interaction with Ashley is my own personal aim when I first met her was to get through Shine, transportation, and then tax advice, the AARP program. And we are so behind. We haven't even got through Shine yet. I guess this is a personal plea to hire more Ashleys, beef up the outreach program. I mean, I'm just one person, and because I'm bloody minded, I'm still here on this council. But how many other seniors are there of my age, in my 70s, that you haven't even made contact with yet? And that's about all.
I think maybe to add a little bit to that, Louise, our partial response at the last meeting, when Ashley presented her responsibilities as outreach and as Shine coordinator, we recognized the overwhelming need for additional Shine coordinators. And I thought we talked about investigating training for more people to become Shine.
Do you want me to
Advisors?
respond to any of this, Kathy, or how do you want to handle this?
Well, I think we've talked about this before, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if it's a personal issue, that people should take it and they're not getting results they want maybe from Ashley or another staff member, that you should go directly to Cindy instead of the council. But
Okay.
you're making us aware of the situation that you are facing. And if you're not getting it addressed, then I would go directly to Cindy. Is that correct?
Okay, I can do that right now.
So Can I respond?
Yes.
Okay.
Cindy.
To be clear, if you have a transportation need to get somewhere or somewheres, what the council can provide is, if it fits within the city transportation we provide, you call us and you make your request and we fulfill it if we can. If the issue is that you need a PVTA senior ID, we facilitate you getting an ID. If the issue is that you need to learn how to and register for the PVTA senior van or the ADA disability service through PVTA or the public bus, we provide travel training and support. We provide one appointment to train you on how to apply for the PVTA senior van. And then we, Ashley, independently calls PVTA for you to hold your hand, registers you for the PVTA senior van and makes your first appointment for you only. We do not problem solve every single transportation need that a person has in Easthampton outside of signing you up for city-funded transportation or one PVTA senior van appointment. Beyond that, if you need help with your ADA certification through PVTA, we will coach you in how to talk to your doctor about it. If you have been shown how to do this and you have a cognitive limitation so that you don't understand how to make your appointments, or if you have memory loss or some other issue that prevents you from making your plans with us, what we say is then you need another person who helps you, is your companion in scheduling transportation with us. People who use the city-funded Council on Aging Transportation Service have to be capable of planning, filling out their calendar, paying for the ride, showing up for the ride, and managing all those affairs. They also have to be capable of managing use of the fitness programs and the classes and the other services that we provide. And if they need help beyond what we provide, they have to get that help outside of the senior center to help them participate. The senior center is meant for people who either are capable of participating themselves or have a care partner or an aide or somebody else who has a power of attorney who can help them participate. And it's the same thing for Shine Counseling. It's the same thing for any outreach service. If we have provided you the complete service, we have taken it to the plate, we have helped you sign up for the health plan, we have educated you about the health plan, we have written it down, you have written it down, we have called you and met with you in person, and we've done everything that we can to educate you, and our outreach worker makes the determination that we've given you all the information and now it's on you to take care of the rest of it. And then if they need, they can either the resident can refer it to me to look at, or the outreach worker, or both can refer it to me for a case meeting to look at, did we meet the goal of that client interaction on that specific thing? We're done. And for some people, they reach the end, and some people have not yet reached the end of a particular item that they're working on. The outreach worker will continue making appointments with them and work on it. And what you're not hearing is the full picture, which is that, we do continue working on the problem until we have to put a period and say, that item's, we've done all we can. And then if that person still doesn't understand it, then I don't know, probably they would need somebody in their life to help them with that. Now, say somebody's had 3 Shine appointments, 2 transportation appointments, an appointment for fuel assistance, an appointment for food stamps, or whatever it is. Can they come back with a new thing? Yes, they can come back with a new thing. But if they come back with the thing that we already took through the plate, there was nothing more we could do on it, we can say to the resident, we've done all we can, and that's where we stop.
Louise?
Yeah, okay. Taking myself as a senior who, I don't know how that happened, but by now I'm in my mid-70s. I thought, I'm still scared that it's going to take till this time next year. And I won't have gotten enough assistance from, or timely enough assistance from Ashley, outreach worker, to get through Shine and get on to transportation. I'm more confident about AARP taxing just because I think I've got the latest appointment possible sometime in March. And the amazing Chuck, who's in charge of it, it took about 1 request in less than a week, and he sends me an email saying that basically, Cindy, I followed your procedure, and took about a week for him to turn up in my own living room and hand me the whole packet that you would usually pick up on your first appointment and all that. And now it's up to me, which creates considerable difficulties now to process, print out, whatever, all that stuff, dealing with 3 years or 7 years back in time to be ready for the next appointment.
We have about one
So-
more minute left.
Okay, so just a note for the public on AARP. So the federal government has not refreshed our supply of the tax prep packets. We are out. They're due any day now. So if there is anybody who's missing their AARP packet, which is of great concern to many people, it's because we don't have any, and we will have them soon. Point 1. Point 2, I do want to echo what Marie said. As the COA director, when I'm hearing from one of our COA Council on Aging members of the board, are the very particulars of their own client interactions with the senior center. And that is not what the Council on Aging Advisory Board time is to be used for. And I again make the plea that any Council on Aging board member who is an Easthampton resident, age 55 plus, and has their own personal matters to work on, has to do that through the senior center. And as an individual, if you're not happy with how the staff or the director are handling your matters, you can always go to the mayor's office to say that you did not get good service. Hopefully you give us a chance to talk with you about what is the service we did provide and what are the limits to that service and the benefits of that service. So that's why and I don't want to pick on anybody, but that's why I made the general statement. Here's what we do. Here's where it stops. But yes, if you're unhappy with the service of the senior center, anybody can go over the COA director's head to the mayor's office, as long as they've gone to the director to make their, either to get help or ask a question or make a complaint.
Tom, and then we need to move on.
And just one other point of clarification on that, Cindy, is that any resident who wasn't happy with something could potentially attend one of our meetings and speak during public speak. But that is not an opportunity for us to engage that person in a conversation. It's for them to make their point. We take it under advisement and we move on. They simply make their point. We don't get into a Q&A on their personal issue during the course of the meeting. But it gives you a chance to hear what a resident might say at public speak and react to that resident or respond to that resident later on.
Yes.
Perfect.
All right, in the absence of time, we will move on. We'll go back to Patrick. Anything from Highland Valley?
Negative, not this time. I was on vacation last week, so I did not attend the first meeting of the year.
Very good. All right, we'll move on to old business. And we'll have an update on the ad hoc building committee. Leslie?
So, very quickly, the ad hoc committee met last week to really finalize our draft report, which has now been sent to the mayor. So it includes, some information about the sites we visited. It included information from UMass Boston on peer community data, potential locations, the architect's report from 2022 that the COA engaged with, and now the report is in the mayor's hands. So the committee will be meeting with the mayor next week, and we'll see what questions the mayor has, and really the mayor will, help determine where things go from that meeting. And that's really about all there is to report.
Thank you, Leslie.
Okay, just an update on abstention or a clarification. Cindy did go back after our last meeting and talk to Barbara just for clarification on the simple majority versus a quorum. And my understanding from that is a simple majority is of the people that are present at the meeting. So there are 7 of us now present. So a simple majority would be 4 out of that 7 for passing minutes or anything like that. I asked her what type of an issue we would need a quorum for to have a 6 out of the 9 votes. And she said some of the other boards have it stipulated what is a quorum vote and what isn't. I asked her if the bylaws were, and in some of the committees, the bylaws, you do need a quorum. But she said, I didn't find anything in our bylaws where it said we had a quorum to make a bylaw change. So I guess that's it. It's a simple majority of those that are present at the meeting to pass anything.
Thank you. Questions?
Thank you for following up with Barbara. And I talked to her right before this meeting too, to find out about what we would need a quorum vote for. And there's nothing specific.
Sounds good.
All right. Board residency requirement hearing. Tom, I guess we're a day ahead.
No, not really. There have been 3 city council subcommittee meetings on this issue. I think I opened a can of worms. And what really opened a can of worms is when I informed them and discovered that the majority of boards or committees in town do not have a residency requirement. We are in the vast minority of boards that required a person to live in Easthampton. Sounded like an easy fix to me, but now I think they're going to go back and review whether or not the other board should have a residency requirement. But in fairness to that, they are moving forward with our request, and it goes tomorrow night to the full city council, hopefully for approval. We've all talked about what the changes here were recommended. Currently, it says that you must live in Easthampton, be a resident or a voter. We've asked that to be changed to say a person who lives in the city or works in the city, live or work in the city. A couple of other minor changes were, it says in the existing ordinance that the chairperson is appointed by the mayor. That's never happened in my lifetime. The chairperson is appointed by the board. So that would be changed. And then the only other clarification on the residency requirement or lack thereof would be that there was a concern that what if the entire board was made up of non-residents? So they wanted to limit it. We went from 1 non-resident to 3 non-residents to what have you. I recommended that we use a percentage rather than a number. So they agreed with that and they voted to have the language read that there would be no more than 1/3 of the board could be a non-resident. So in our case, that would be potentially 3 members could be non-residents. Could be, doesn't mean they have to be. Just so obviously, if you recall, what started all this is lifelong Easthampton resident member of the board moves to West Hampton, has to get off the board. It would prevent that from happening in the future. Or you could have other qualified candidates like bank employees who don't live in Easthampton, or other employees of other, Mike Superson, for example, at Big E's could not join our board today. So
Yet they're very engaged in the community.
exactly. Spend more time here than they do at home, I used to
Yes,
say.
yes.
I think the only other piece was that it said that the Council on Aging Director could hire employees, and obviously she can, but not on her own. It's through the Personnel Department, so we added that language in there too.
Can you tell people when the hearing is?
Tomorrow night, 6 o'clock. It's a public hearing with the full city council. Might be 6:15, I forget.
It's
I'll be
usually
there.
6:15.
6:15, yeah.
Yeah, it's usually when they start.
I'll be there because I'm there for another issue anyway, so. And I'm hoping that Counselor Denham, who's the chair of the subcommittee, will probably say what I just said, and then just say, do you have anything to add, Tom? And I'll go, nope, nothing to add.
Thanks a lot, Tom, because again, I think there's a lot. It's unfortunate because, Chuck being our example, but there are a lot of other, I think there are a lot of other folks that'd be great on our committees, or some that there's a lot of open spaces in a lot of committees that, I'm not saying that they're all going to flood in now and come and join them, but there are more than a few people who we know that do a lot to help support the community, and having them be able to join any of the boards is I think a good thing.
So thank you, Tom, for your persistence with this.
Anytime.
Patience.
I didn't mean that.
Alrighty, our next order of business is new business, and we'll talk about what I'd like to open up to the board is anyone who has any suggestions for future items for our meetings. And Cindy already brought up one point about the organizational chart. It's a potential future item. So open it up to anyone of things that we might want to discuss or talk about at any of our future meetings.
I had a thought. Okay. So one of the responsibilities of boards and actually of me as a regional representative to the Massachusetts Councils on Aging is to keep abreast of legislation that affects older adults and, issues that affect older adults statewide and regionally. And for example, there are groups keeping tabs on things that are very pertinent to the situations of our residents. For example, say Mass Senior Action, and they may tackle issues that we can't tackle alone. So I was curious to have a conversation at some point to educate ourselves about what are the different groups that apply to our age range. How can we learn what's happening besides the one of the ways that we learn is through the Mass Councils on Aging newsletter, and the other, which is about to become a very public newsletter meant for consumers instead of for professionals. And so that begs the question, how could the board members digest that information, use that information to advocate for the residents of Easthampton as a Council on Aging? So I don't know how to structure the conversation yet, but it could be a potential item called advocacy or legislative advocacy, or, working with other community groups, and then, following on that is, do we want to have a liaison? Do we want to have liaisons with other city boards or committees, a group like Mass Senior Action or another group, liaison with the Friends? Like, it seems like an area where people could use their skills to bring information back to this board, and then this board could decide, does it want to take actions? But it would need an education mechanism to be able to take some sort of action, like writing a letter for example, to your representative or to the mayor or city council.
Do our representative, I know you've had, like, Dan Carey and other reps have come to the COA and have had meetings with us and informative issues and opportunities to speak. Is there one of our representatives that's really focused on the seniors and are up to date on the legislation that might be coming forward that we could invite to this meeting?
Both Senator Vallis and now Representative Gomez, from what I've seen, are very concerned about issues to do with older adults. They do come to coffee hours at the center, and that I would think would be the first choice. I don't mean constituent services where they help people one-to-one with their issues, but coming to those coffee hours as a board member and asking questions and getting educated is one mechanism. Having them come here, I don't know if they have time to do both.
And if we would need them, I mean, it's just a matter of.
And then there are other organizations that have legislative breakfasts where we could, go to those legislative breakfasts and participate in those where they, especially where they have agenda items that pertain to our residents or older adults. But I don't know if that answers your question.
Is there anyone that's currently a member of this board that has a real interest in the legislation? Or the legislative process, keeping up to date on it?
Hi,
Haven't in the past necessarily. Louise?
probably. I don't know how much I could do of it because, are we talking about, Omar's new position?
What we're talking about is having board members read the information that comes out about issues that impact older adults and then bring reports back to this board. So but we don't have to talk about today. We're talking about creating agenda items for the future, but that's what it would be. It would be being an informant and helping the board take action.
I think that would be something I'd be interested in doing, just from attending a couple of the coffee sessions with the legislators, Gary and Bellis at the time.
That's why I
Going to
looked
the
at you when
State
you said
House.
that, because I knew you had somewhat of an interest.
Going to the
Because we were
State House,
both
we
there.
met with Bellis's aide another time. And then writing letters. So there was a lot of follow-up on legislation.
Yeah.
So.
I'm not sure how much of this
Or
would be.
my head in,
Tom?
hat in the ring for that.
I don't know how much of this would be a board discussion, but the event that you held last year at Eastworks, I don't know if that's something that would be appropriate to be an annual event. I don't know if there was something specific that sparked that event, or if it was just because we had a lot of excellent speakers about, items in general, but
The housing thing?
it was the housing, but it obviously how it impacted seniors. And you had other organizations that were there. But if it's appropriate for that to be an annual event, that might be great.
It was a good turnout.
I thought it was a great turnout.
When
So
was it?
Pardon?
You have an item, a suggestion?
When was that particular event at Eastworks?
May 2024.
May of 24.
So sometimes the staff are coming up with ideas for talks. Sometimes it's stimulated by current events or by a grant or something. So the question is, can the board stimulate topics that we could host an event on? And then to what extent can the board get involved in creating and organizing and hosting the event? Those are like kind of two parallel, separate things. So that would be an item we could talk about for the future. Yeah.
I think one of the issues that comes to mind, Kathy, for maybe a legislative initiative is when the state might look at some sort of funding program for senior centers like they have for schools and other initiatives. Right now, there's no bucket of money set aside to help build senior centers. Might there be an initiative to help? Now, unfortunately, every community around us has done it on their own without it. So they might say, oh, job's done. We don't need any more money, but I'm sure there are a lot more in the statewide that don't have new senior centers than do.
And that brings up an issue, which is, should this board be in contact with other boards from other communities? Or not, about, things that we could work on together to advocate or to learn from other boards.
Do you as a director meet with other local directors periodically?
So I'm co-regional rep for the Highland Valley 24 town area. And then, that 24 town area has, where the directors are invited to meet together. And then, there are the symposiums and conferences where we meet with other directors. And then online, there's a chat room for the directors to bring up issues and so on. For the friends groups and the board groups, there is no formal structure. Every once in a while, is there a training? And MCOA is committed to helping boards, function better, like putting out that board manual. But if you wanted to, say, have a community bring their board members to a meeting and have an agenda item, hey, let's chat with Amherst, then you could do that as part of the meeting, or you could, just like we can have a training outside of the public meeting, you can converse with other boards and bring information back, and do work outside the meeting. So it just kind of depends what the board would like to do and what would be helpful. I don't know if Leslie can comment on, was it at all helpful to research other friends' bylaws and processes in thinking about our local friends group or not?
Would your staff ever come up with any ideas that they would like us to have some further discussion on?
Yeah, so I would say it's a little bit of new territory in a way. So I think of things that I think the community should have some input on, or the advisory board. I would like the advisory board to have input on something that traditionally boards do, like say a code of conduct. And I have done that, where I bring it, I don't have to. It seems wise to. There's nothing set in stone about what the board has to do and doesn't have to do with either the operations of the senior center or the needs of older adults generally in Easthampton. So, that would be another agenda item, would be, do you want to have staff presentations? Do you want me to bring back to my staff meetings, like requests from the board, for what matters to you in your work? Could you tell us, and we'd like to discuss it, and
Like when Ashley was here last month, that was very helpful, just getting an idea what
Very
each person
informative.
is doing and all that they're doing. I mean, I don't think we always have a clue.
Or for example, I brought the issue here that we were grappling with when we were talking about how much of a heads up do we give Easthampton residents about our activities before we open it up to others. And with the help of this board, we reduced it so that it's balanced and people have responded to the balance. And I don't want to make a decision like that on my own, because I want to have more input than just the staff. But again, you're leaving that to my judgment. So, there's just so many possibilities for what the board could do with its time.
Are you able to identify any, this is along the lines of having a staff member come in, I'm thinking of users of the senior center. if you had an idea of who some of your heavy users are, they're regular, they're involved, and they're proactive, they're positive, what have you. What about having them that person come to a board meeting? And we understand you're very involved. What do you like? What don't you like? What would you like to see from our programs? What are we, are we hitting the mark? Are we missing the mark? But it's from an actual patron, if you will, who is a heavy user of the center.
It's interesting you should say that because, so the ad hoc building committee did develop a survey. And with UMass Boston's help, we decided not to implement the survey because as volunteers, the committee really couldn't do it and do it well and handle the data that came in scientifically and well. So UMass Boston, we may get the funding at some point to contract with them again to do a formal needs assessment, but also besides needs assessment, there's program evaluation, which is what Tom's talking about. You're using it. How is it? How does it go? And, sometimes we do little surveys. So, I mean, when you said that, I immediately thought what we could do is we could have the board help a little. Now, we were waiting till we got all of our new staff. So we were staffed up for this. But we could come up with a program evaluation process that involves the board and the skills of people on the board. And as part of that, people could come and speak. We could put out surveys again for the different activities that we do. And then as part of that, write up a report and then have people come as examples of, that process. But to just invite people as one-offs, come and tell us what you like and don't like about the center. In a way, how informative is that? They're one of like 1,000 people. Is kind of like if the only representation of what people like about the center is one board member saying what they like or don't like. So I think it would be good, but it should be part of a program evaluation process.
Now, when UMass did their, what were,
The 2018 report.
Now, wasn't that long ago, there were meetings and, when people were asked what they liked and didn't like and.
Yeah.
So would that be in that preliminary report from UMass?
So the report that UMass did back in 2018, all of those meetings and questionnaires and everything, that's in that one.
Okay.
The one that UMass just did was not about so much what do individuals think about the current senior center. It was about what are the needs as you grow older in the city of Easthampton,
Okay.
right? And then
So that was different, yeah.
so it was a little different. So if they were to come back and do what they did again, which is have a questionnaire, disperse it, do focus groups and write up what the needs were of the people they're surveying and the staff that they're interviewing and you, then that would be another big
Right.
process like we went through last time.
Oh, yeah,
But-
they were different
Right,
focuses.
but you could have a different thing, that's about what are the needs. Like I said, you could have a smaller process with a different process, which is how's it going, folks who use our fitness classes, let's
Yeah,
have a
if somebody-
focus group.
Came in with just a really small, quick survey.
Yeah.
When the class finishes, fill it out real
Yeah,
quick.
right.
It only takes a couple minutes. Somebody comes in, collects it.
Right.
And then reviews the data.
And
which I
that's
would
what
be
we
happy to
do. Right, so like Healthy Bones does that separately because it's a separate program. I don't know when the last time is, we did it with the YMCA classes. I did it with the fitness center last year and had a meeting with like almost 50 people after
Wow.
they filled out their questionnaire about what equipment they use and don't use, changes we could make. So, yeah.
So and I see these guys are, so just hearing what's being discussed around the table, one thought that comes to my mind is, I think, surveying current users is important, but I think the other piece that, at least to me, is equally important is getting data and then maybe the COA director being able to advocate for increased funding for the COA. Because if needs are growing then how does that impact the budget? The senior center, I'm gonna call it that, sorry.
Okay.
I can't. How does that impact what the senior center does? And somehow, all these things are an important part of telling a story. Because there are lots of needs in the community, but being able to advocate for them effectively is a critical part. And I'm not sure that one person alone can do that.
Just to piggyback on that, if I may, Kathy.
Yes, Tom.
Um,
And then Louise, Tom, and then Louise.
when you were talking about the organizational chart, I assume that that will include all positions needed or required, regardless if they're filled or not.
Yes, it's the same org chart that's in the city budget every year. I just did this year's for FY26. Yeah.
So even if you have holes, the position is still there.
Yeah.
And I think to Leslie's point a little bit, when we have a new center, that might expand greatly, but beginning to learn how to advocate for that now rather than wait till that time comes.
Yeah. I also think that's where it's really important to have staff come to these meetings once in a while, because Dawn, for example, we just met about this for an hour this morning. The team met about, what programming are we offering? What do we want to offer? And, if you have a certain number of people in the room in an exercise class, it gets to be too many. It might create a big policy change, which is that people would have to sign up. Right now, nobody has to sign up for a fitness class. And so we may need to decide that we're doing that to control how many people are in the room. So sometimes it's not, do we need more money? It's that we need a new, bigger center, or even in a bigger center, a teacher might say, this class just won't work with 21 people. I can't keep an eye on you, whether you're hurting your hip. But what I hear Leslie saying, so every year, and it's been delayed from the state, but every year around this time, I'm doing the state report where I pull all the statistics. And maybe, something we could do is before, and then I bring you those statistics as part of that process and the budget process, where I report out on the highlights of what we accomplished in the year prior. I bring those pieces here and we've talked about them, but I think if we're doing it with an eye to, do we need more resources or not? Let's look at the statistics. Let's look at the use of the facility. That it would be a great discussion to have here.
Yeah, it would,
Mhm.
especially within this next year.
Mhm.
Okay, we have time for one more comment, Louise.
Man, I wanted one more.
Sorry, I'm looking at my own notes. Okay. Cindy, when you were talking about some friends group, did you mean Easthampton neighbors?
No.
Okay, I would recommend, if I can, as a user, board member, whatever, I would really like to see more shared resources and shared information back and forth between Easthampton neighbors and the senior center. And UMass Amherst. Definitely in favor of, I think I actually experienced their information gathering last year. Definitely in favor of more input from them.
So then is what I'm hearing a future agenda item to have Easthampton neighbors come back and do a presentation / conversation with the Council on Aging Board? Because it's been a while.
Totally.
Tom?
Real quick, I promise. When you talk about potentially bringing in staff at a meeting, sometimes there's safety in numbers, and I wonder if we could dedicate a big chunk of a meeting and maybe you have 2 or 3 of them come together to present and bounce stuff off. So it doesn't have to be just one person like we had last time, or Dawn coming in, or maybe there's 2 or 3 of them that come in and each speak about their respective areas of expertise within the council, within the senior center. And we dedicate a big part of the meeting for that.
Dawn and Ashley I think last year, were on, the municipal cable kind of show conversation between the two of them
Yeah.
about the center.
Yes, everybody should watch that. That's on our homepage on the
Oh.
website. Watch or listen to that video, but I see we're at time,
Yes.
Kathy.
Alrighty, I will entertain a motion, to adjourn.
Second,
Now we gotta make a motion first.
motion
Hurry,
to adjourn.
Second?
Leslie seconded.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.